it's ready.
Alright, let's call the meeting to order. It's 6:32 p.m. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Any seconded?
Second.
All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to consent items. Does anybody have any questions about any of the consent items? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve.
Make a motion.
And second?
I'll second.
Okay. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
In any nays? Motion passes. Moving on to communication from the public, there is none, so go on to director's report.
All right, so things are settling down here. We're into our fall programming, which is going very well. Our September circulation was 4,395, and we had about 2,100 people through the library. We did 23 passport applications. Our first quarter statistics, our circulation is 16,466. We've had about 8,654 people through the doors in the first 3 months of the quarter, so we have been quite busy. I'm not gonna go through all these, but one thing, the study pod has had 59 uses in that first quarter. It gets used all the time. We're getting lots of positive comments on that. Our fall programming is going well. We did switch today. When we started, we had the Little Comets story time. So in the past, we've always had the same story time offered Monday or Tuesday, so that preschoolers, it didn't matter which day you came. Nicole switched that up this year, and so any age is welcome at the story times, but the one geared towards like 18 months to 3 was on Mondays, and then she was doing a STEM-based one that was like kind of more preschool age, and that was on Tuesdays. And we made the decision to flip-flop those here after the first month because there's no preschool on Mondays, so it makes more sense to have the preschool program, so they're not trying to get out of here and get home to get lunch and get to preschool in the afternoon. So the parents were actually very pleased with that choice. When you look at the stat sheet, there is a huge drop in program attendance in September compared to last year. And I was like, whoa, what happened? So I went back and looked, and last year, Fall Fest was held in September. And we had over 200 kids participate in our activities down there. So October will look really good compared to last October, because we will have activities this weekend at Fall Fest.
Yeah.
But yes, that's where the historical statistics come in very handy, and you can say, oh yeah, that's why. I went to the ARSL conference in Springfield last month. It was very good. I attended sessions on
ARIS is
the Association of Rural and Small Libraries.
Okay.
The Association of Rural and Small Libraries. But yes, I had sessions included in human resources, strategic planning, youth programming, senior programming. The strategic planning one was very insightful. I was really happy that there were 2 people from the State Library of Iowa in there, and we are hoping that they revamp their whole strategic planning process, because guess what, guys, it's coming up again. So all of the full-time staff will be headed out to the Iowa Library Association conference this Thursday and Friday, and I'll be there Wednesday as well, since I'm on the planning committee. Event keepers, so people, if you hear anything about the Adventure Pass, it's been kind of a mess lately. They 2 weekends ago, moved to a new cloud-based server. It did not go well. And so they just, as of Friday, finally got it back up in a beta format, so people haven't been able to book Adventure Passes or do anything for over a week. And our website was down for 3 days in September as well. I don't speak the language, but it had to do with SSL certificates.
You shouldn't take it offline, you should just put an error up that says it's invalid.
Yeah, okay, something came up at Nation, you couldn't get there, but.
You could, but you had to actually go, I'm okay. Yeah,
Okay. But between Civic Plus got it taken care of for us. the computer equipment that we got rid of and the 2 desk chairs got us $77 on Gov Deals. One thing that we're looking at switching up is our newsletter software. There's a program called Wowbrary that I kind of like, only in that it would save us a ton of time. So right now I spend a lot of time each month putting together the monthly newsletter that goes out, and it's very pretty, and it, Wowbrary basically creates a weekly newsletter by syncing directly to our library calendar and creates the newsletter without me having to do anything. And it also pulls your new releases and puts it into
Like
a
AI?
Facebook post.
No, the kind of AI.
I don't know, maybe.
It's not so much.
I think it's more is it RSS feeds that it's pulling.
It's just an auto scraping.
And the thing is though, is it looks very much like a WordPress type thing. I mean, it's not.
I didn't look at any of the output, but I looked at what I read their thing, and it's like, yeah, okay, works well.
It works well. If you want to see what it looks like, I can show you Boone's. I've got their most recent one. It's like $500 a year versus like the $1,200 a
Oh,
year.
that seems like a no-brainer.
Right, so and the thing is it's a lifetime, like the price never goes up.
Oh,
Like we get in based on our population, it's $500, no matter how much the city grows, that price never changes. Seriously. And so I'm like, we could get it for now. I mean, we're paid through April with our monthly newsletter. If we really don't like, we could always renew it, but I feel like it's at least worth exploring.
We can do some testing though.
Right. So the features that we would lose, like that's where we make our brochures and stuff in LibraryAware, we could make them in Canva.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, I feel like I could save some money, and more importantly, I can save some staff time at this point.
That's a significant amount of
Yeah.
savings for something that will do pretty much the same thing.
So,
And
right,
make better,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, last week we received a surprise site visit from the New Orleans Passport Center. They were in Boone doing trainings, and they were very impressed with our setup.
They surprised you?
Yeah, we didn't know they were coming.
New Orleans?
So they were training new agents up in Boone. They were doing they had asked us to host, but I had to give up our meeting room for 3 days, and with programming I couldn't do it. And so
Well, that's what happens when you don't give them your room.
Surprise, here we go.
We're coming anyway.
So, but we passed with flying colors.
Excellent.
Friends of the Library had their book sale last month. They raised about $350, and they hosted a puzzle competition. They've got another one this Sunday at the Legion. And they are going to have a mini golf activity during Fall Fest, so that'll be set up there in front of Ashley's. October 29th is when we'll have our city chili luncheon, so the library will be closed. We approved that kind of as a to be determined when we approved all of our closures at the beginning of the year. And then we have so many people asking if we'll take puzzle donations, which we don't tend to do because we just get overrun with puzzles. So we're gonna host a puzzle swap on November 9th. So that week, Monday through Thursday, people can bring in any puzzles that they want, and for every puzzle they bring in, they'll get a ticket. And then they can come back on Saturday and they can buy puzzles with their tickets, and they can get different things.
Excellent.
So that's that in a nutshell. I'm not gonna spend the time, but I did link the annual report and then the summary of the annual report in your stuff, and I put some of those summaries out in our information center as well. I haven't posted it on social media yet, but I plan to.
Alright, no liaison tonight, so board education, Justin?
Alright. Alright, so I went to the county trustee training, which was in West Des Moines, was it like a couple weeks ago? The 17th of September. And it was all focused on like what a board does and the role of trustees, and they started off really talking about the idea of building relationships. It was kind of the big focus they were really talking to. They had the Grimes librarian director speak. They had the Ankeny and the West Des Moines people speak as well. And they talked about building relationships is something you really want to do with your city council, with economic groups in your town, and they talked about doing that years in advance of needing to like ask for money for a building project from the library. So that obviously like perked my ears up as we're kind of looking down that path in the coming times. And they talked again like what we've talked about of trying to have a member at city council meetings just to start to establish a presence. Multiple trustee people from different areas around the central area so that they do that and that they take turns rotating through it. So that might be something we can talk about, trying to establish a schedule or something like that to start attending city council more. The director talked about being at volunteer and public events to try to build relationships, things like our fall festival, things like Four Seasons Festival, things like that, of handing out hot dogs and working like grilling things out and like having a little station for the library is an easy way to kind of build up relationship things. When they talked about the role of the state library and its role kind of looking over things, they really stressed that the state library is not a regulatory agency. The state library actually has no authority over any local libraries, and so it's mainly just focused on education and trying to help trustees and trying to help people understand the role better and help libraries across the state function. They mentioned that we're in the central region, and I was surprised that in the central region there are 104 libraries, and there's 544 in the state for the stats they were giving. So I did not realize there were that many libraries. So that's an awesome number. They mentioned like having a guaranteed practice of doing board education every time that you have a meeting for about 10 to 15 minutes and going through the trustee handbook, talk about areas for improvement, look at the web series things that the state library puts out. So I feel like our board and our trustees are kind of going above and beyond with that, 'cause ever since I joined, that's something we've done pretty much every time. So that was a feel good about that situation. They were also mentioning the idea of like checking off different standards for your accreditation, which they said, is not mandatory, but just nice to help look up for things. And so, so since I went, they said we can check off standard 11, tier 3 for accreditation for county trustee training. So check it off. We got that one done. They really talked about the idea of the trustee board being the oversight of the library to really like take an active role in like the health of the library, making sure that things are functioning well. They said that it's wanting to be more than just showing up and like looking at things as you go, but like being prepared, looking over things. Like I was thinking about that as Jamie was sending us the information about the copiers and having to make a decision of that. So having attended the meeting, I'm like, I'm gonna look at this before before 20 minutes before I come and make sure I'm doing a better job of kind of thinking through that and being prepared, learning about that a little bit more. They talked about that you should more than once a year would be their recommendation, but at least annually evaluate your library strategic plan to think at the idea of, are you actually like meeting what you set out your goals to be? And so they said a lot of places can fall into the habit of that's something you look at like at the end of the year or the start of the year. You kind of let the calendar dictate that, but trying to make it like a periodic check-in occasionally in your notes, maybe once or twice a year.
We typically pull it out every 6 months.
Yeah, so they talked about just not waiting until the end of the year because it can be a good midway through the year checkpoint. Another thing that I think bodes well for our group and the way that we're running is right along the line with what they have talked about. They really said that everything in your strategic plan should radiate out of how to serve the community. That it should really be focused on how to meet the needs of patrons, how to improve your community more. Kind of the theme of the whole night was the idea of like really serving the community and like building relationships. And so they said it's not just building relationships when you want something, but building relationships too of how, like we've looked at survey data from people, what they would like to see from the library and things along those lines. They said that the idea of advocacy was another big thing they talked about quite a bit, and they had some people talk about advocacy. The West Des Moines Library was really interesting. They talked about how they didn't open a second full branch, but wanted to do community outreach to the, I'm gonna mess up the name here, the area that has like kind of the older shops and stuff in West Valley Junction, there it is. They talked about they didn't want to open a second branch, that wasn't fiscally feasible for them, but what they did is they opened up essentially like, they showed us pictures on their website, it was like a book vending machine. It was really cool, and so they opened up like a mini location in Valley Junction. They keep it stocked with about 500 titles, whether those are DVDs and books, and then you can actually return your stuff there, you can check out there, and then they replenish it, and then they have like a bookmobile that's like a van that also makes runs to replenish, and they just said they felt like that was kind of meeting that idea of serving the community, even though some of the other people like from Ankeny asked about the idea of like, so what are your usage stats? And they said, well, we haven't had it up that long, but yes, we care a little bit about the usage, but honestly, we're not letting that dictate whether we think it was a good idea, because we truly believe that like community set up there deserves to have that kind of function. And that was kind of the origins of the West Des Moines community, and so they felt like it was kind of a tie back to their roots and was important for the community. So they said yes, they want it to be used, but they saw it as tying back into kind of the theme of the night of meeting the needs of the community and having that advocacy for people in the community. They really talked about when you are talking to other people and advocating for your library, it's really important to have stats. And I actually threw out one that you always share with us of, because of our size, we read materials at 3 times the rate of a typical library would, and that is inefficient use of our funding, inefficient use of our materials, and it stops us from maybe building as big of a collection as we'd like to see. A couple other libraries kind of went around and talked about some of those ideas of like, what would they like to see, making sure they have reasons if they were going to ask for something, whether it was new materials or like a STEM, like wall was an example that another library gave, of the idea of making sure they had stats to show, hey, we've had this many requests from patrons for something. This many libraries surrounding us in the community have this tool. We don't, and so we're kind of standing out, we're not helping our community the best they can. And they talked about the idea of like essentially having like your elevator pitch for your library. If you had 1 minute to talk to somebody about your needs, your wants for your library, what is going to be your go-to stat, your go-to thing you're going to say? So I thought that, I really jotted that down as something that could be useful for us to maybe figure out and talk about as we hopefully gear up in the next years for that push for potentially new space, of figuring out what would be our elevator pitch and our go-to stats that we could point to. The library board they talked about is really in charge of all the finances. We're administrative boards, not just advisory groups. We have the right to kind of spend money. We take, obviously, like the director will give recommendations to that, but ultimately the final say does come down to the trustees, and so not to let that just pass by, to actually look through the budget, be careful, look at what you're spending. They said is really important on the role of trustees. They said there are 4 required policies. They must be reviewed every 3 years with that like accreditation process. Another big thing they talked about with the idea of community was really looking at your collection and your collection development. And they really hit on the recent trend in the last couple of years of people kind of coming at school libraries, public libraries, and the idea of making sure if you are going to reach out to your community that you should be a place of intellectual freedom, and that hopefully you would have something on the shelf for everybody. And if someone says, hey, I feel offended that you have this title or this thing, hopefully you would then be able to show, hey, we're making sure we have that for those people, and we also have these titles that might offend somebody else, and they might bother someone from the other side of the political spectrum. We want to make sure that it's a place of intellectual freedom. And so they really talked about that one of those key kind of standards and ideas is free access to all expressions of ideas, and to make sure that you're not coming down too far on one side or the other of the political or ideological spectrum. Policies that you have and that you are looking at, reviewing, should be all about promoting access to your library and increasing access to your library, not restricting access. They talked about the idea of part of the advocacy job of a board is also looking out for your director, who does a lot of the advocating for you to things like city council, but they mentioned specifically the idea of like pay and benefits and like cost of living raises and incremental raises for your director, for the staff of the building. That is part of the trustee's job, is to make sure that they are advocating for those things. And they said that the public, there is, through the State Library of Iowa, they've recently come up with a public library compensation toolkit, was made available to update your job descriptions and compare jobs, salaries, things like that to nearby communities, so that if you are looking to update the job description of your director of staff, you're creating new staff positions, that they would really recommend using the state library as kind of a reference point for that in that toolkit. Anytime in a standard it talks about the library, they said that means the board and the director. Some people will just automatically think it means the building, the director, but it also means us as the trustees when you use that word library in things. They talked about going to city council meetings and making that a habit, really trying to set up a rotation amongst us to do that. Invite prominent members in your community to come to trustee meetings, invite them personally, because they said, obviously most people don't typically show up, as we've seen. I don't think in my year of doing this that I've seen anybody come to one of our meetings beyond Jeff. So they said maybe seeking out and trying to find someone that has an important sway or could help you in some way with a project that you're looking to do down the road, having them come and building those relationships with them would be really good. They talked about using social media to reach out for the library. It was interesting because the Ankeny board people were there, and they were talking, one of them was talking, was it Des Moines? No, it was Des Moines, excuse me. One of their members was talking about how they would send a weekly piece, but then people started questioning about well, is that in your official capacity as a board of trustee person of the library? Is that just you personally? And so that kind of raised some questions that people were kind of chatting about of if we are posting things on Facebook or we are sending out messages through our own personal accounts, should we be talking about that before we do that if it is about the library? They just kind of said there's not really a hard and fast rule about that, but you just want to be mindful of that because that person was talking about posting out things about the library from their own personal account, and then the director, the person leading the conversation, is that's a really hard line to walk, because then if you put something else on that same feed where you're talking about the library, but something else that can upset someone, then you've created almost an association between the library and your personal opinions and thoughts. So you might want to be careful about that. But they did have some things talking about posting from the library, of having a weekly surprise of hey, don't forget about this old classic that you might not have checked out in a while. Sending out a message about, hey, here's these new things that we just got in for books, for movies, for things like that. So I figured I would kind of ask about that as what's our frequency, what's our usage of social media. With that, one of the places talked about that they just started getting sets of tools. And so they're posting out of hey, doing a home project, come to the library to check out a drill. Des Moines talked about the idea of, obviously they serve a very different clientele than Polk City, but having things carpet cleaners, Des Moines talked about.
I don't have space, people.
Yeah, no, it was just interesting, as you know.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the tools. Oh, come get a saw and some chisels, sharp objects. Take those home with you.
They specifically mentioned a drill as one that like you could now check out. But I know like when we've gone to like the Grimes library, they had like games you could check out, video games. I know I've seen that at multiple other libraries I've been at like Pella and things like that. So as we think about like what could be things down the road, they mentioned expanding again the types of things you do. One thing they did mention that I thought would be kind of interesting that maybe we could rotate through ourselves, even at our meetings, we could just add it to the agenda of like a post like from the trustees that goes on the library newsletter or goes out through the library social media of like, trust the trustee, you should check out this book, or like a recommendation from us.
I do like that.
I kind of liked that, and so I was like, oh, that's it. I wrote that one down specifically. Trust the trustee, yeah. Of like, we can each, at each meeting, we talk about taking turns of, we send out a recommendation for a book or a movie or something that we have here in the collection of like, hey, or we could even have like a small thing like, as you walk in, of like, hey, try this as our new thing of the month. They talk about having your vision, mission, and values on the library website, which we do, so we're good on that one. And they talked about working together with services in town, like having hiring flyers, application posts, space for community events, which we do have as well, so feeling good about that. Yeah, that's kind of a rundown of what I took some notes on. I think they I don't know that they ever actually said, I didn't have it written down, but every library, there was like 14 within our district or something like that, within our area, so like 13 of them were there. So they said it was a good turnout, pretty much all of them were present. They're gonna host it at Ankeny next year.
Okay.
Then they said that they wanted Grimes to be the next one because people wanted to go to the new place. But preliminarily, it sounds like it's gonna be in Ankeny next year as well.
Cranky.
Yeah. So any like questions or things about that wondering about?
Sounds like it was good.
Sounds good to me.
Alright.
Alright, moving on to agenda items. Number 1, review tier standards. Section 1, library governance.
Alright, so we are back to the beginning. So to kind of things that, and a lot of it kind of just didn't touch on, but as administrative boards, Iowa Public Library boards have the power to hire and evaluate the library director, determine salaries and compensation for the director and the library staff, establish the library's line item budget within funding limits established by the city council, oversee spending and approve the library's expenditures, develop and adopt policies for the library's operation, engage in short-term and long-range planning for the library's future, and exercise general oversight and governance of the library's operation. And then those standards that go with that, the tier 1 standards, a legally appointed and constituted library board governs the operation of the library. The library board or other authority as defined by ordinance hires the director, delegates the management of the library, including personnel administration, to the library director, and has legal authority over the library's budget and over all gifts, bequests, and donations. The library board adopts an annual budget. The library board is funded by its city on a permanent basis. The library board has written bylaws that outline its operational procedures. The library board meets no fewer than 10 times a year with the library director or designee in attendance. Meetings are at a set time and place convenient for the board, staff, and the community, and in accordance with the state's open meeting laws. And the library board adopts four required written policies: circulation, collection, development, personnel, and internet use. They have to be reviewed at least every 3 years. We make sure that we look at those every year, and all of our others are on a rotation. And all members of the library board of trustees participate in a variety of board development training each year. We have written policies, and yep, so I think we're good.
Alright, moving on to number 2, review the registered sex offender policy.
So I had sent that to you, basically that's one, it was on its rotation, it came up. I did send it to Chief Sipker to review again, because it does say that in these situations, we would call the police, to have somebody removed from the building. He did not recommend any changes to the policy, he said all of the laws that are referenced in the policy are still in effect, and so, you know, basically it's still a relevant policy, the way it's written.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about it or anything? Do we have to vote? We
Yep,
just need to review.
basically, yep, it's kinda like, what was up, we have documented that we reviewed it and.
Okay. And then number 3, approve resolution 2024-12L leasing copier.
Alright, so, as, I explained when I sent out the agenda, the copier that we use for patrons, so we have 2 copier printers. One is on the patron network, one is on the staff network, so that there's not a crossover. The one that we use, that patrons print to, has been a 5-year lease. The lease expires here at the end of October. So we are looking at options. We've always used copy systems, and that our Kyocera. So you know that's where we started. They gave me basically 2 options that I explained. We have the standalone of just replacing the one that we currently have leased, or we have the option to go with the new lease and then upgrade the one that we bought last year. Like I said, we've been disappointed in how efficient that one is.
It's not.
It's manageable. It's an
annoyance.
It's an annoyance. It is not as fast as the copier that we had, and so we notice it, right? Evidently, so the one that we had did 30 copies per minute. This one does 25 copies per minute. The one that they have offered us as an upgrade is 35 copies a minute. But it comes with a cost, and I outlined all of that. So the standalone copier would be $74 a month, and then there would be a $39. We pay $39 a month as part of the maintenance contract with that. If we were to do the lease and then upgrade the other copier, it would be $94.82 per month. And we already have the maintenance, so that maintenance contract. So basically, we pay $39 for each contract. If we lease the patron one and do not upgrade the current one's maintenance contract will go to $42 a month.
Oh,
Evidently, they're saying that's what they were supposed to have been charging us, but there was a mistake and we didn't get charged that. So then I reached out to MMIT, which is who other city departments use. He came in with a proposal. I only had him do a proposal for the lease because he didn't sell us the other one. He can't really do anything, as far as other than we just have to buy a whole new machine, and that's not fiscally responsible. His is $90 a month, and I'm seeing that I have a typo on the resolution here, so I'll have to have you come back. Whichever one we said go, I put $74 a month. It is $90 a month for the MMIT lease, and that includes the maintenance contract
for the patron.
for the patron computer.
Or the
So then
patron
we-
copier.
For the patron, yes, and then we would still we would still have the $42 monthly maintenance contract on the staff one.
So the staff one's gonna go from 39 to 42 no matter what, probably.
Yes, the only way it doesn't go from 39 to 42 is if we do the package deal.
$3, okay.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation, or want, or wish?
Yes, that's good. That was gonna be my question. I just
My
didn't-
question was also
I'm
just
sorry.
like,
You're
how
so
many copies would you say you usually like make a month?
I can tell you that. So on our staff computer, we,
Staff copier. I
Uh-huh.
said computer once.
yes, staff, yep, now it's stuck.
Could be that's right.
So our staff, machine, we did about 1,500 in May. We did,
1,500 plus or minus.
so yeah, we did about 7,000 in June,
Ooh,
summer reading.
ah,
You know, that's what you can, we ran off all of our summer reading stuff, that's just what you can take from there. Yeah, we did about 1,800 in July, and we did about 1,600 in August,
okay, so 1,500 to 7,000 a month,
so,
somewhere in that range.
yeah. Would it be, it would be really nice to have a faster machine, but honestly, I don't think for the money, I just don't know that that is the most fiscally responsible decision. Like I said, it works.
What do you want to do? We're back to that question. Aren't we, Lisa?
We are.
So, my first preference, I think, would be to upgrade the machine and go with the lease. I mean, if we're talking about what we want to do.
Option 1, 2, or 3?
Okay, I'm also like confused by all the numbers, so like,
Yeah.
what you would want is how much more total than if you kept the current machine, does that make sense?
Yes. So the one, okay, go back.
I'm looking at option 1, which is you upgrade both okay,
The new lease and an upgrade to the machine we own, right?
right.
Okay.
That's option 1 you've listed here. And then, to me, just upgrading the current patron copier, okay, fine. But for $6 more, why not get you guys a new one? Or let's save $25 a month and go with MMT. I'm kind of 6 of one half does the other on those two. I don't think the middle option really should be considered. That's just me.
So the middle option being just the new lease.
With copy systems, yeah.
Right, okay, correct.
We either go with the Cadillac or we get by with both,
Right.
with Chevy.
And the price, so if we upgrade the machine and if we do everything with copy systems and we do our new lease and we upgrade our current machine, it is going to be $16.92 a month more than what we pay right now. If we go with MMIT and just do a lease with a new company on the patron printer, it will save us $12.90 over what we are currently paying. So you're looking at a difference of
$28
$28,
a month, which isn't nothing, but
30, yep.
my only reason for considering MMIT is the rest of Polk City goes with MMIT.
Mm-hmm,
That's a bonus.
definitely.
The savings is nice, don't get me wrong, but yeah, not either upgrade your staff copier or you don't. And if you don't, go with MMIT. If you do, let's go with Cadillac. That's my opinion. Take your picks.
That makes sense to me.
This is true.
Yeah.
Is there a reason in the past you've gone with a different one than the rest of the city?
I think the city just moved him
Oh,
about
just-
last
okay.
year or
Yes.
so.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I'll be honest with you, the company I work for, I handle the copiers, that's why I care. We've been with copy systems for ages, but we are looking, going, what other companies are out there? Because you are getting better prices with other companies, and just as good service.
How long is the lease for?
It's a 5-year lease.
5 year.
Yeah, so you are locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 5 years, would you be thinking about replacing the,
The one that we just bought, most likely.
Or I'd say less than 5 years, I'd say 2 probably.
We got 5 out of the last one,
Okay.
and honestly, I would have kept it. What you run into, and I think it's because, I mean, it's not like a school where they are getting run to death.
Yeah.
What we do run into, the reason, the upgrade is they're like, after 5 years, it's too hard for them to find parts if it needs to be repaired.
Most computer systems, 3 to 5 years.
Right. So,
I count copiers as computer systems.
so, yeah, there's a chance that, in 5 years, we could look to just do it all at once.
I think you have a motion coming, I'm just not sure what it is.
I don't know. I'm listening.
But you're also the IT
I'm
copier
the
guy.
pusher, yeah.
You're the copier guy, so you know.
But we never got an answer out of her. What do you wanna do? Option 1 or option 3?
we know option 2.
From a staff standpoint, I think we would all appreciate the faster copier. I know that 5 copies a minute just doesn't, or being
Doesn't
5
sound-
copies slower doesn't sound, but I am telling you, it makes a difference.
Is the new one you're gonna upgrade at 30 pages per minute or more?
It's 35.
Okay. Option 1.
Are you moving?
I'll make a motion that we go with option 1 for upgrading both the patron and the staff computer.
Second.
All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's a done deal then. That's what we're doing. Alright, that's it, let's adjourn the meeting, it's 7:15, anyone want to?
Alright, I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
Alright, all approved, say aye.
Aye.